and welcome back to another episode of The Breakthrough Room. I'm your host, Christine, where I share transformative moments in life, mindset, and mental well-being. So for today's episode, I want to share this big aha moment that I got from a reality TV show. And FYI, if you don't know, I am a huge Bravo-holic. It's embarrassing. Well, it's not embarrassing. I'm not embarrassed by it, but people want to give me shit about it. And it is what it is. I love reality TV. It is what it is. And I love Bravo. So it's the new show, The Valley, which I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not really crazy about, but I just have it on and I'm just watching it. I haven't watched the most recent episode, but that's not important. It came from, I think, episode 3. I think it was episode 3. And I don't really remember the characters' names. I'm not too invested in this show, but so I don't really remember the characters. However, there was a couple and they were meeting with a relationship coach. I don't think it was a therapist, but it was a relationship coach at least. And it was kind of like the same story of couple have been together for X amount of years and they've just lost the sexy of their relationship. Therefore, they are disconnected. There's not a lot of intimacy, physical as well as emotional. And they're kind of talking about this. And the wife is kind of going through, I don't remember exactly what she was complaining about, but ultimately the husband in response made this comment that a lot of people think it was very much very much of a calculated response in, if I do X, when will Z finally happen? Very much transactional and not heartfelt. And it was kind of well, if I keep giving her compliments, when will she X, Y, and Z? And the therapist or the coach, what he said in response blew my mind. He said, and I quote, hold on, pulling out my notes here. This is the one thing I did actually take notes on. He said, your attachment to the result is going to cause you to fail. Meaning, if you're doing something with the expectations of a specific result, then you're going to get in your way. It's going to fail because you're not doing it from your heart. And in the sense of this romantic relationship, she's going to be able to sniff out that you're not being genuine with your compliments. You're only doing it to appease her so that she gives you something in return, right? You have to genuinely mean whatever it is that you're doing for the health of your relationship. And that got me thinking, how many times do I do things in life where I'm only doing it because I have an attachment to the end result? And my first thought was my relationship with God. Okay, so when I think about a relationship with God, first of all, I think it's really common for people to choose to behave a certain way or do a certain thing because their motivation is the fear of hell, which quite frankly, valid fear. But it's if you think about this further, then if your sole motivation is the fear of discipline, basically, or a response to something, then are you really doing it because you genuinely believe in what you believe? As far as you believe that, loving your neighbor is, are you really loving your neighbor, or are you really tolerating, wrapping it up as love because you fear hell, right? That, it's kind of that same thing as first of all, God knows your heart. He knows when you don't really mean something. Now, I don't think of my relationship as that. I'm not motivated per se by repercussion. It's not that I'm not motivated by repercussion as if I don't feel like there's any consequences to my actions, but the reality is there's always there's always a reaction to every action, whether it's a good or a positive one. And I really do try to be a good person because I genuinely want to be a good person. God aside, that's just, I just have values and morals that I genuinely stand firm on. So I'm not motivated by the idea of, or the fear of punishment, while I know it's still very, very possible. When I think about my relationship with God, I think about the fact that I have I struggle with this my whole life, this very black and white perfectionist mentality, where if I do something, I will receive affirmation. I will receive, to simplify it, almost like a prize. And the prize could be in a form of acceptance and love. So I'm not doing something because I fear a negative. I'm doing something because I'm hoping for approval, right? And I had to think about this real carefully with my relationship with God, because I find myself still having certain conversations and prayers and trying to do things better, and then feeling like I'm failing because I'm doing it wrong. And I catch myself keep saying, I feel like I'm doing it wrong. I feel like I'm praying wrong. I feel like something wrong, that I'm doing something wrong. So if I'm constantly saying that I feel like I'm doing something wrong, that means the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm trying to be right for the approval or love or blessing of God's love for me. Right? So I really sat there and I was like, "Oh man, how do I have an expectation of an end result and it shows up in why I do things?" And so this perfectionist, black and white, this, it's not so much of a reward system, but this idea that I have, it's deep seated in me. I have lived with this thought process that I always have to prove myself. I always have to prove myself, and in proving myself, people will respect me. They will love me depending on the relationship. I will get a raise, whatever. There's this drive to prove myself, which is carrying over in my relationship with Christ. That really got me. So, gotta work on that. And I've kind of always noticed that I do this. This isn't like this isn't like an awakening as far as, or breakthrough as far as my idea of feeling like I need to prove myself, but it changed the way I recognize my actions in trying to earn God's favor. I'm not doing things and saying things and praying because I 100% am believing that this is what's right for me. This is what he's directing me to. This is how I'm glorifying it. I'm doing it with that, but there is also this underlying expectation that in some way I'll be rewarded. And that could be in any kind of form. So that really stuck to me. But the other way that I also thought about this was, let's take relationships out of the picture. In your goals. So when you plan a goal, let's say you want to lose weight. Nobody enjoys every step of that process. They just want the outcome. They want the six-pack abs, whatever it is. But they don't enjoy eating every vegetable, burning every calorie, going to the gym when they don't want to go to the gym, or not drink alcohol, whatever it is that they need to do to get to that end result. They are doing every action with the expectation that they will get the end result, which that is a driver in a goal scenario setting. However, the way I see it is being driven by solely an expectation of an end result will eventually burn out, because once you get to your six-pack abs, now you have to maintain it. And what's the driver at that point? The maintaining? There's no real why. And I think that's why it's important we need to know our why. What is really driving our desire to lose the 25 pounds, or our desire to fit in the bikini, or our desire to have a six-pack, whatever, right? What is the big why behind it? And at least for me, I've never been one that was motivated by something external or superficial. So this is why I was terrible in sales. I'm not motivated by money. Trust me, I want the money, but that never drove me. I was never driven by very tangible type of goals. I'm driven by the bigger picture, by the purpose, by what it does for me spiritually and emotionally. And so right now, I'm once again trying to go through 75 hard. I have been saying this so many damn times. But whatever. Well, that's another conversation for another episode. But I can't, I think about the fact that I can't be driven by what's going to happen at the end of 75 days. There has to be something more to it. And every day, while it is a mental challenge, right? I don't always enjoy the 2 workouts a day. I don't always enjoy the not cheating off of your diet. But long term, I do want to achieve such a discipline where I can conquer any goal that I want despite my circumstances, despite my environment. My environment and circumstances may throw obstacles, may make it temporarily harder, but it doesn't derail me. And that's something that like I'm trying to work through again. I used to have that mentality, but just a season of life just really kind of undid that muscle, and now I need to strengthen it. So anyway, when I think about my goals, especially when it comes to 75 hard in this example, I think about everything that I do is a reflection of either self-sabotage or self-love. So while I don't necessarily enjoy every single act every day of this challenge, but doing that, I am nurturing myself. I am nurturing my body, my health, my mental health, my emotional health, my financial health, because this is all kind of related to what I'm trying to accomplish. Everything is a reflection of self-sabotage or self-love. So if you want to lose weight and you choose to not go to the gym, instead sit on your couch and eat pizza, well, are you sabotaging your goals, or are you nurturing yourself towards your goals? Are you loving yourself towards your goals? Maybe you need a rest day. Maybe you need a rest day. Maybe your body is telling you, I need a rest day. I need to emotionally and physically decompress. I can't go to the gym. Okay, that's not self-sabotage. That's still an act of self-love because you're not doing it out of excuses, out of laziness, out of whatever. It is really for yourself and what is best for you to maintain the long run, right? So that quote really like stuck with me for days because I was just like, how many times have I even like underlining had an expectation of a result, and that was what was driving me? And was that the reason why I was struggling or why I was failing? Like, I don't look at my relationship with God as failing, but I do look at it as I'm getting in my own way. I am creating obstacles because there is an expectation I am putting on this relationship that wasn't given to me by God, but is only coming from within me. And that's the problem. So yeah, so how do we change this? Like, how do I change this mindset? Well, I think the first thing is, I think going back to the idea of every action is a reflection of self-love or self-sabotage. And what are you doing right now? What is that choice that you're making? What is that thought that you're thinking? What category does it fit in? Is it self-sabotage or is it self-love? So I think being able to recognize that everything you do and say, the people you hang around, it is a reflection of one of the two. And that's where being able to be introspective and evaluate your behavior, and then being able to identify like what it is that you're doing and then course correct, of course, is really helpful. So like when you can identify, okay, this action is out of self-sabotage, well then what is your next step? Okay, I need to self-love. I need to nurture. Do what you need to do. Eat the broccoli, not the pizza. So that's kind of what I think about when I think about changing my mindset or habits around goals. When I think about changing my behavior and my thoughts around God, first, I think about God's not a genie. Like, you can't order him around just because you're asking for things, just because you're talking to him, just because you have desires that are put on your heart. He's not a genie. He's not going to do it just because you want him to do it. That's like that bratty entitlement of us being human. And so just kind of recognizing this, I literally had a breakdown in my car, like apologizing, like, I'm so sorry, I've been a brat. Anyway, so that, like, recognizing he's not a genie and understanding that like the relationship is conversation, it's understanding. It's not necessarily I do this, therefore you will do this for me. Like, you will do this for me. And of course you will do it on my timeline. But then also, I think the other biggest thing that I recognized is, am I praying or am I asking and it's coming from a point of unbelief? And that was one of the biggest things that I also recognized in myself today when I was having that breakdown, is that I was actually demanding to hear from him because I was struggling in a lot of different areas of my life. The bigger theme was just feeling lonely in so many areas of my life. And I've been navigating that for a while. But just this one, I just had this explosive emotional moment about it. And I reflect back now, and it's like I was having this moment because I was demanding to hear from him because I was unbelieving of his existence, because I didn't hear from him in the way I expected to hear from him. Doesn't mean he wasn't talking to me. And back when I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess you were kind of talking to me. But that's another thing. So if any of this resonates with you, I suggest you kind of ask yourself those same questions. When it comes to your goals, when it comes to your relationships, are you doing or acting out of self-love or self-sabotage? Are you doing or acting out of the health of your relationship, or are you doing it with the expectation of receiving something from your relationship? Of course, you'll receive benefits from a healthy and happy relationship, but are you expecting it, or are you working for the health of it? And then with God, the same thing is, well, one, he's not a genie, but are you talking, are you acting because you're fearing, you're motivated by the fear of hell rather than believing that adultery is a sin? Or are you doing things out of, or asking for things out of unbelief because you don't believe in his existence, like I was struggling before just because I didn't hear him in the way that I wanted to? Or do you have this weird perfectionist mentality like I do, where it's like, I feel like I'm doing everything wrong, therefore that's why I don't hear him? Or you kind of have to ask yourself, like, what is driving you? Are you being driven by the authenticity of your belief and the genuine points in your heart? Or is it an expectation? So that is what I got for today. And I hope that resonates with some of you. And I would love to hear more from you. So if you have any feedback for me, you can reach out to me on my new Instagram, hello.breakthrough. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.